Nikki and Ness, congratulations on your new book, Healthy Hustle. Super excited. Healthy Hustle, the new blueprint to thrive in business and life. I am very excited to talk to you about this book and share your genius with so many people. This book is so needed right now. But before we get into the depths of the book, I'm curious, why this book? Why is this book, Healthy Hustle, so important for now?
Such a good question, Janine. And the reality is that right now, hustling hard is costing lives. And that's not even a dramatic statement. At best, when we're hustling hard, when we're doing the unhealthy hustle, at best, it will minimize the efficiency of our business. It will impact the long-term sustainability. But at worst, people are dying from exhaustion, from burnout. We have interviewed Christine Boucher, who is a health and wellness coach who spent 20 years as a nurse looking after intensive care patients around issues with heart disease, stroke, diabetes. And she could see the trajectory that these people were on and how they got to where they are. High stress environments are one of the most common reasons that people go and see a doctor. We know that more than 9 in 10 workers are chronically stressed. These are some of the stats and research that we did for the book, but you don't need to do that research to know. You just look at the news, you hear the stories around exhaustion, burnout, physical harm. Ariana Huffington, she's a classic example of a woman who collapsed from exhaustion, broke her cheekbone on the way down, woke up in a little pool of blood and was like, oh my gosh, what's the cause of this? It was exhaustion, stress. They're the high profile scenarios that we know. And I think we all have, maybe not to the extreme of that, but examples of this in our everyday life. I mean, I've literally done a coaching session with a leader on how to have time to go to the toilet. And it sounds ridiculous. It's crazy, but that's the reality of the state that we're in right now. So why now? We have to create change. Why this book? Ness and I, we've been doing this gig for decades, actually, over 50 years together. And I really don't like saying that a lot, but it's true. We've done tens of thousands of coaching hours, training sessions. We've observed patterns of behavior that achieve success without burnout or without entrepreneurial addiction, and the patterns and the behaviors that keep us stuck in the busy trap, stuck in the whirlwind. And so we really kind of came together and went, how do we distill this knowledge and this information, not just from our collective smarts, but also, Christine, and leaning on other experts to go, actually, what is the blueprint? Because reality is, it is our duty of care to create change. And as business leaders, the three of us here, people that are listening, people that are watching, it's serious, and it is absolutely a call to arms to find a better way. It's got to happen. And if not us, who, right? It's time.
Love that. And I have to fess up and say I was so honored to have been asked to write the foreword of the book, and everything that you are saying there resonates. It's why I was a hell yeah, I'll absolutely write this foreword, because I'm with you. There are too many business owners right now that are stuck in that busy trap, that are spinning hard. And the very reason that they went out to create what they're creating is almost like a far forgotten dream, because they're so busy pedaling hard in their own businesses. So I'm curious for you, who do you think should read this book? Who needs to read this book?
It's really pointed towards business owners and leaders with established businesses and teams. So they're looking for a better way to continue to grow the business, and they're really sick of the hustle culture. So the hustle culture keeps you tethered to your business, and they're really wanting to get out of that, sort of hustle and grind kind of mentality and find a better way. But I think there's a fear that if I do something differently, the success I've had up until now is going to go. So they are action takers. They're driven for success and they want to continue to succeed, but it's getting to a point where it's feeling really, really hard. And that leaves them, you know, sort of feeling like they're stuck in business. They're not spending time with those who matter the most. They're getting towards that burnout, and they're beginning to wonder whether it's all worth it. And what we don't want is to have people who have worked so damn hard to get to where they are, getting to a point of it's either my health or the business, and I need to walk away. Because we go into business, all of us go into business because there's something that we believe that we can add value to, that we can solve a problem for, that we can help others. And it's not about losing sight of that, but it's about getting to a point where we can say, okay, we can keep growing, but not without the exhaustion. And when I say that, I think about one of our beautiful clients, Jody, who was at a point of near burnout. And she really was contemplating walking away because it was just too hard. And what she was able to do over a period of time is to realize there is a different way of working. And we're now 2 years down the track, and the business is still growing from strength to strength. She's taken a leader on board in the business. You know, there's a way forward without feeling like she has to let down the 25 staff that they have, her mum who started the business, feeling like a failure for giving it all away. And instead, she's in a position now where she can take holidays. She can actually find that balance between work and life that works for her, and not get to that overwhelm and exhaustion phase. So I think of people like Jody, and I realize that they're the kind of people that are going to get the best out of this book. But also, second to that, we've had leaders in big corporate, read the book, and we know that it actually helps them as well. So I think the secondary audience would be leaders in a business that's not theirs, but primarily the examples and what we go through are written for the business owner.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking to there, this hustle culture, is almost size of business, entrepreneur versus corporate, agnostic. Nikki, you spoke about this, about, all of the stats, all of the trends coming through, whether you are a one-person business or a leader of a huge conglomerate, this hustle, whether it be hustle for sales, hustle for time, hustle at meetings, hustle with people, like this hustle and the exhaustion that's coming with that is currently detrimental to business owners, leaders, but then it filters down through team because they're seeing that as the only way to work. What I love about this book is you maintain, it's in the title, you talk about healthy hustle. Versus the hustle that we're seeing now, which is having so many negative connotations and impacts on individuals, teams, leaders, and businesses. So one of the key things that I'm interested to understand is why you've kept hustle in the title of the book because of its negative connotations. You do talk a lot through the book about moving from hustle to happy versus that hard hustle that's going on. So I'm really curious to hear from your perspective the rationale of hustle still being there in that title.
So here's the thing. We don't necessarily want to take some of the hustle away. The problem is we've taken the hustle too far. So the hustle has become the unhealthy, hardcore push till we drop. What we want to do is we want to look at what elements of hustle actually work for us, because we want to create this definition of success that says we can be tenacious, we can be driven, we can be determined, we can, get up and go, we can have momentum, but not at all costs. What if we could do that and prioritize life just as much? So we think that the hustle is a really important component, and there's lots of conversations and narrative about the hustle is bad and move away from it. I mean, we opened this conversation with the negatives of hustle. Yet, if we look at how we can make the hustle healthy, we can start to unlearn, relearn different beliefs that maybe hold us back. The reality is that the people that we're talking to, the business owners, leaders, is we're successful for a reason. There's certain things in there we want to keep, and we want to build on, but there's certain things like beliefs we want to let go of. The way that we're managing our energy, the time of day we're working, all those sorts of things, the type of business that we're building. We have the opportunity to redefine what that looks like. We need to add the healthy and we need to keep the hustle, because the hustle creates momentum. Pressure makes diamonds. So it's not about one or the other. Why does it have to be at cost of? What if we could have both, but we do it in a really smart way? And so this is why everything we do is through the filter of healthy hustle. Even when we talk about sales, it's like, what's a smart way to generate more inquiries or sales or conversions? Like, what's a clever way to do this? So I think that's a really important point when we're looking at healthy hustle. And the other thing I just kind of want to mention here around this is that typically, when you're ready to move from the hustle to happy, there's a bit of a crossroads. We call it the growth set point, the crossroad of your pain and growth set point. So you've had success in business, time in business, results in business, likely revenue, profit, team has grown, established products and services, but then the business owner starts to feel like a bit stuck and what's next? Do I really have to continue my success in this way? And there's three choices here. And this is what we talk about in the book. And really everything is centered around what choice will you make? Because you can keep going as you are and the business will plateau. You're not trying new strategies. You're just going, and you're not challenging that status quo. Or we find a lot of business owners and leaders will bury their head in the sand. So they go into avoidance. And that's when you'll actually start to go backwards. Think of the dream, think of the reason that you came into business, lifestyle, time with family. You don't want to sacrifice that. Or you could choose the third option, which is what we're encouraging, which is this hustle to happy and healthy hustle, where you actually start to look at things in a different way and redefine what success looks like. So we've got to keep the hustle. We just need to make it a healthy, resourceful hustle.
I love that. I love the piece around you and I. We're also aligned here. It's that momentum. You're okay. It's okay to strive for momentum, for more, for success, but not at all costs. And this is what you talk about in Healthy Hustle. And thank you for sharing the rationale there. I think it makes absolute sense of moving from hard hustle that's essentially doing damage to healthy hustle, which is, as I talk about, life and business by design. I'm curious, before we get into the depths of what you write about, so we can share with the audience a little bit more, you've got three main concepts that you talk to in the book. Can you just share those with your audience, please?
Sure. So the three concepts that we talk about is moving away from where business feels really chaotic, we call it business chaos, over across to smart growth. So it's getting out of the clutter and then looking at how you're going to move the business forward in a smart way. We also look at this concept of juggle street, the being everything to everyone kind of situation, and wanting our leaders and their teams to move to peak performance. So peak performance across the way that they work, the way that they do business. And then the third area that we look at is getting out of the busy trap. That mouse wheel where you just feel like no matter what you do, you can't get on top of it all and you're constantly spinning your wheels, and actually allowing the business owner and the team to have time freedom to be able to prioritize life, but also time freedom to see what's next, what's the next big idea or the next thing that you want to achieve. So they're the three big topics we talk about.
So when you talk about healthy hustle, in your book, you talk about three critical ideas about how people can move from hustling negatively to actually hustling healthily. I'd love you to share those if possible. If one of you can just talk to those three critical ideas of what you've seen around moving from and moving to, and therefore, what you're talking about in this book.
Sure. Look, I think there's the three areas that we talk about, and I'll start with smart growth. That's the first one. This is about being intentional in the way that you plan in your sales and in your profit. So we want people to start challenging the norms around what business success actually looks like for them. So for you, is it about success at all cost? You know, is it about a dollar figure? Because we've seen businesses and we've heard the stories of businesses with millions of dollars of turnover and no profit or very minimal profit. So why are you busting your ass to make all this money to not actually have a profit in there? So we want to challenge that. And part of the model that we have includes an importance on looking at, in our planning, making sure we prioritize life just as much as we prioritize those business goals. So there's a whole lot around that in relation to having that optimal energy level and creating an environment for long-term success in business. So that's the first area around smart growth. The next one we talk about is peak performance. And what we're wanting to really focus on here for leaders and business owners is creating a really empowered, autonomous team who sort of want to be, you know, working towards high performance in the team. So we get really clear on what that definition is for the team and for the leader. And we want them to set up consistent rhythms and structures and systems in order to allow some transparency to happen so that the team can actually do the do without the owner needing to feel like they've got to be involved in everything. We term in the book this juggle street feeling, the feeling of being everything to everyone. And if you're not involved in all these parts of the business, then something's going to fall over. So peak performance is really about setting the team up to succeed so that you can then focus on succeeding at what you do best. And then the third area that we cover is this idea of time freedom for everybody in the business. So we want people to look at their leveraging whatever their natural drivers are, what their strengths are. So for the leaders and the team, so that we're getting a return on effort and really reducing the number of hours that people have to work in order to get a result. And in fact, what we know, and we talk about in the book, is that anything over 50 hours of work is pretty much ineffective, right? If you're doing 70 hours a week thinking you're the hero of your business, the reality is you're not being productive. And of course, that doesn't tie in with high performance. So we want to come back to getting really crystal clear on what are the priorities. How can we create an environment that's not rushed? And how can we get really solid boundaries and unspoken ground rules that are healthy within the business that everybody in the business follows, especially you as a business leader? Because sometimes we set others up and tell them not to work long hours and make sure they take their 4 weeks of annual leave, but we forget us in the process. So really, it's, I guess, the key thing in looking at those three models working together is about helping the business owner stop being the bottleneck in the business. So instead of feeling like you've got no time, you don't know where to start, you're feeling like everything's chaotic, we're here to say there's a different way of working. And what we want is for them to be able to come back to that, to have a look at, you know, don't just go with what's comfortable. Even though working long hours can feel uncomfortable, it's really a comfort zone, and we want to challenge that. We want to stretch out of that and show a better way.
All right, let's deep dive into each of these. So first one, you talk about moving from business chaos to smart growth. Can you tell me more about what that means? And it'd be great to hear some evidence of success when people have moved to that smart growth place.
So smart business growth and moving from that place of chaos to smart growth is really about leveraging three key areas. You've got to have a clarity of direction that you're heading. So business planning, but gone are the days of the 500-page PowerPoint presentations. You spend months creating it. Just a simple plan on a page, or we call it the True North framework, to help guide people through a simple process to have a plan. When you have a plan and you have a focus on sales and equally profit, so plan, sales, and profit, that's actually how you know you've got smart business growth in place. Now, we have a client, James, he features in the book, incredible results. So we've worked with him for the last 5 years. He has had 98% year-on-year growth on average for the last 5 years. Now, he's an established business owner, and there was an increase in profit as well. He's installed smart business growth strategies. He has a plan, he focuses on sales and profit, and obviously there's key elements around that. But what we were really celebrating earlier this year when he shared this with us, yes, the revenue results are great. Yes, the profit increase, amazing. We love that. We're in business. We love the numbers. But the thing that we were most excited about and celebrating was the fact that he doesn't have his phone at the dinner table anymore, that he can have breakfast with his wife before going into work. He's got time to do school pickup. He's working towards 4-day week now, 4-day week. So, you know, that's what matters, because when he came to us, he was like, Nikki, I'm constantly connected. I'm waiting for the next thing that's going to need me. I can't, it's taking me away from my family. And we actually interviewed him on a podcast episode as well, really uncovering what his beliefs were that defined his definition of success when it came to smart growth, sales, profit, etc. So that to me is such a classic example of somebody who is absolutely living and breathing smart growth strategies. He also has implemented some of the peak performance components and time freedom, but at its core, that's where we have to start.
So smart growth, or from business chaos to smart growth, what I love about what you share, again, reiterates that this isn't about hustling hard. It's about hustling smartly, or healthy hustle that you talk about. And who doesn't want more choice in how they're managing their day? I'm sure there's people listening going, I want more holiday, I want more time off. Thanks for sharing that. I want to jump to the second one, because I think your concept here, I'm hearing so much in the marketplace right now, this feeling of I'm constantly juggling lots of different things. You call it juggle street, and I go, absolutely, yes. People seem to have so many balls in the air that the challenge is they can't focus on the right things that are going to shift the dial, or as you talk about, peak performance. I'd love to hear from you, you know, some examples of what people can do to move from juggle street to peak performance, and why it's important that they do that.
For sure. So when we talk about juggle street, I think of one of our clients, Mark, and he stated it beautifully in that he was very reactive rather than responsive to challenges. So it was like, and I'm sure our listeners who are in juggle street can resonate with this, it's like putting out spot fires everywhere. So he was just like, here's a problem to solve. I'm going to solve that problem, and then on to the next, which meant that in this reactive kind of response to leading, he wasn't looking at that bigger picture and thinking around, well, what is it about the culture that we're setting up here? How can I set up the systems to support my team? Because in his mind, and he was a leader in a business, someone else looked after that. So once those pieces came together around creating an environment for the team where they understood their role and their purpose, and he got people sort of on board around what the culture of the team is. So what are the attitudes that we turned up to work with every day? What are the standards? What are the expectations? And then him focusing on how can I set my people up to succeed rather than have them reinvent the wheel every single time. So looking at those two things combined were really helpful for him to be able to approach problem solving in a different manner. And then that third piece around people and skills coming together, understanding what makes my team tick. How am I going to get the best performance out of Nikki compared to Ness, compared to Janine? It's that whole thing around just having that superpower to realize how to fast track influencing those people. And I think that what happened for him was he started to realize that not only was the performance improving amongst the team, but for him, it was a less stressful way of leading, because he wasn't getting to the day before a day off or a public holiday thinking, you know, if everything's going to hit the fan, it's going to be on me and my team aren't going to know what to do. So I really see that the juggle street is driven by this reactionary way of leading. And to be able to get to peak performance, you've got to do something different.
I love that. What I'm hearing there too is moving from a place of just transactionally going through your day, as you said, responding to fires that need to be put out, or emails that have landed in your inbox, or somebody else's drama that they're bringing into work, versus taking ownership around the transformational nature that you can initiate or drive or own through peak performance. So can totally understand why that's such a critical part of healthy hustle. I want to move now to the third piece of your IP that you share in this book, which I have no doubt many of our listeners are going to resonate with. It's this piece about moving from the busy trap into a place of time freedom. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I've just done this little experiment over the last 2.5 years where I Google searched, how can I manage my time more effectively? And I've looked at how many results there are. So stick with me, because over the last 2.5 years, the amount of search results that come back for how can I manage more time effectively have increased by 6 billion.
Wow.
What that tells us is that people are searching for a better way to manage their time. 6 billion. It went from 514 million to 6.37 in 2.5 years. But the reality is we actually don't need another time management tool. We've done the courses, we've read the books, we've got all the tools at our fingertips. If we don't first work on things like our belief around time, then it doesn't matter what time management tool you have, it will never do its job, which is, I think, why we're seeing the increase in people needing and wanting this information. I even think one of my favorite resources to share is the Big Rocks video with Stephen Covey. You know, it's in the late 80s, big shoulder pads, you know, the big hair. But the reason I bring that up now as well is that was back then, and we're still looking for a better way to manage our time. So if we can just pop the pause button on what we're doing for a second and actually start reflecting on things like, what are my beliefs around time and how is this serving me? A classic example is ban the B word, people, right now. Ban the word busy. So again, I think about a client who we talk about it in the book, who was a new leader and really wanted to succeed. Another James, this is. We seem to attract working with James. So James H, you know, he really wanted to succeed. But he got caught in this cycle of busy, and he thought that by asking for help, that's showing a weakness. You know, his beliefs around how he's managing his time and asking for help weren't serving him. So when we were able to have a conversation around, okay, what if you actually just remove that word from your vocabulary? This was a mission that I went on in corporate years ago, because what's the most common answer that you get when you ask people, how are you? They say busy. And so then we're keeping ourselves stuck in that perpetual cycle of busy trap. So that is my challenge. Things like beliefs and the subtleties of language. What are you telling yourself? Just to build on that a little bit, I also want to kind of look at this from the perspective of, we can either live our life living in busy or being in busy, or we use the terminology in the book, we can move to a place of living. It doesn't mean you don't have a lot going on. It doesn't mean that, you know, we're all just as busy as the next person, but we have the same amount of time in the day. So it just means that we can come to a place of mindfulness. We can come to a place of appreciating moments, even when it feels really chaotic. So beliefs are really important. We don't need another time management tool. The boundaries that we set for ourselves as well really help move from busy trap to time freedom, and understanding what is right for my unique me. What's my internal driver? So things like, am I a morning person? Am I a night person? What type of clients do I want to work with? What type of work? How can I empower my team to step up so I can step back and we can all be living in our genius zone?
Oh, high five to that. I remember I giggled when you talked about the time management, because I can't remember. I must have been before my time. I remember in my very first job as a graduate trainee doing a time management course. And I actually got into trouble because the person that was delivering that training actually said to me, "You're on the tube, Janine. Whilst you're on the tube, you could do X, Y, and Z." And I went, "No, I don't see why I should fill that time. I'm quite happy reading my whatever the best-selling book was." And I remember being hauled into the HR office at the time and being told that's actually not what you should be doing at this age in your career. And I've heard it subsequently, not that same thing, but the other one that gets me is when people congratulate themselves for zero inbox, and then at the same time they're exhausted or they've worked late. And I go, who said you had to have a zero inbox? Where did that rule come from? So, you know, your point about the belief systems that have been passed down to us, that we've inherited, the rules that we have decided are non-negotiable. And yet, why is it that sometimes when you give yourself a challenge, you seem to be able to find the time? So I love the concept of busy track to time freedom. And equally, as someone that's been running their own business now for I think about 14, 15 years and 20 years in corporate, I reckon that is the one thing that I have to continuously work on. I've got good at removing busy from my vernacular, but that being disciplined about the other stuff and understanding that that is as important as answering an email. So much good stuff in here. Having read this book, I was lucky enough to read the book in its various iterations before you got to a final manuscript. There are so many tools. There's so much research gone into this. And that's what I love about your book, Healthy Hustle, that it's not just what you've seen from your years of work, both in corporate and the clients that you've worked with subsequently, who you've helped shift into this place of healthy hustle. It's not just that. You've backed up with so much evidence that it's actually hard to argue with what you're actually saying here. And I think that if people can pick up this book and even take 1% of it, it's going to help them move from that place of hard hustle and the risk of that to themselves and their business to being happy and a healthy hustle of actually finding the joy in their business again and reconnecting with the very reason why they're doing this, for themselves, for their families, for their teams and their communities. So congratulations on such an incredible book. As we sort of wrap this up, what is your wish for the readers that pick up this book and have the chance to absorb the awesomeness in it?
Well, our wish for the individual reader who's picked up the book because they're resonating with this message is simply that they get their life back, that their business can be the dream that they had and have the success that they want, and they can still spend time with those that they love, doing the things that lights them up, that they enjoy, and make them feel healthy and make them feel happy. And I really think it's about coming back and saying, there's one part of the book that Nikki quoted, this beautiful poem, I think it was, in relation to what are you going to do with your one precious life? But that's how important it is, and that's our wish for somebody who's reading the book. But bigger than that, our wish for the collective is that we really start to change the business landscape for the better. So we want a more sustainable way to help people thrive in business and life. And we want to create that ripple effect right across. So not only touching the reader, but their teams, and then of course the families and the children to come and all of that. That's sort of like that it goes out much further than just the person reading the book, because they're applying what they know. And really having the opportunity to challenge and break those cycles, especially around hustle, so that they can be healthier human beings and happier human beings. And I think that that is our wish for the whole collective of people who pick up the book. But also within that, it doesn't mean anything if you don't do something, right? We can read books, so they're not going to have an impact unless we do it. So we ask anyone who picks it up, our ask of you is to just do one thing, pick one thing and make a change on that. And then, of course, buy the book. And then that way, once that one thing is nailed, you've got the next thing to move on to. So this is a long-term plan. It's not a quick fix. It's not going to all happen in, the next week. It's around, as Nikki said earlier, it's about challenging belief systems and implementing new ways of working. So that's that's really what we're hoping to achieve through putting this book out to the world.
One of the things I picked up in your book that you said, and I think you said it a few times through the book, and I'm quoting here, is you said working smarter is no longer a luxury. And why don't you comment on that? Because I think there's so much in that statement. Working smarter is no longer a luxury.
Yeah, because it is no longer a luxury. And I think what we have to bring to the table here is that healthy hustle isn't just, I'm going to do a little bit more yoga, or I'm going to drink more water. Like, that is important. They're the basic foundational elements. But the reality is that this is, you know, something we need to take seriously. And it's no longer a luxury, because we need to create change. Change is needed. And again, I go back to what I mentioned before around, it's actually our duty of care to do something about it now. We're fortunate enough to have the capacity to do something, to break the cycles that have gone before. We're not working in the Industrial Revolution, people. We are in 2024. Yes, we're dealing with constant change and challenges, but we have it within us to be able to create change. So it is no longer a luxury. It's a must. It's essential for survival, for your business, for your health, for your team's health, and again, that ripple effect that we talk about.
So I've got to ask, how can people best contact you? So the book is available now. You can get it, I'm assuming, via your website. But how else can people get in contact with you? How can we support you?
So first of all, 𝘏𝘦𝘢𝘭𝘵𝘭𝘵 is where you go to get the book. But also you can visit us at businesstogether.com.au and you can get to the book from there. But that's if you want to friendly stalk us and find out a little bit more about us. Plus, Nikki and I are both on LinkedIn. That's our social platform of choice. And you can just look us up there and connect with us on there. We'd love to start the conversation around how healthy hustle can help you. And we'll put all those links in the show notes.
Awesome. I think any business owner, any entrepreneur, any executive, any business leader, any CEO needs to grab a copy of this book, because who doesn't want smart growth? Who doesn't want peak performance? And who doesn't want time freedom? Congratulations on such an incredible book, and for the gift that you have given the planet to drive that change from hardcore hustle to healthy hustle, and actually happily building the businesses of our dreams. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine.
Thank you, Janine.